Hello, NAAIA community. Get ready to relive insightful discussions, gain fresh perspectives, and be inspired by the wealth of knowledge our community has to offer. Let's dive into another episode.
Good afternoon, esteemed guests, colleagues, and friends. It is my distinct honor to welcome you to the National African American Insurance Association's Women History Month program. Today, we come together under the theme of the art of storytelling, celebrating the triumphant stories of women. As we celebrate Women's History Month, it is critical to recognize and honor the remarkable accomplishments of women throughout history, from trailblazers to pioneers who've paved the way for future generations. Women have continually demonstrated resilience, strength, and innovation in every area of society. In the insurance industry, women have made significant strides to piercing glass ceilings. Yet, we remain underrepresented in management and executive roles, despite possessing the skills, knowledge, and determination necessary to excel. Women continue to face barriers on their path to leadership positions. When we consider the intersection of race, gender, and class, research describes a concrete barrier that hinders the progression of women, particularly women of color within our industry. This disparity not only limits opportunities for individuals' advancement, but also stifles diversity of thoughts, innovation, and progress within our organizations. Today, as we gather to celebrate Women's History Month, we choose to focus not only on the barriers we face, but the triumphant stories of resilience and achievement. Today, we amplify the voices of three extraordinary women who have overcome obstacles, shattered stereotypes, and blazed trails in the insurance industry throughout their inspiring leadership, dedication to empowering, and uplifting other women in workplace, and whose commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion has paved the way for more inclusive and equitable industry. These remarkable women will share their stories, insights, and experiences during the panel discussion today, reminding us of the power of perseverance, the importance of representation, and the limitless potential of women in the insurance industry. To guide us through this inspiring conversation, it is my pleasure to introduce our moderator, Tamra Johnson, Vice President of Public Policy at the American Property Casualty Insurance Association. With her wealth of experience and commitment to fostering dialogue and progress, Tamra is the perfect steward for today's discussion. Please join me in welcoming my friend Tamra to the stage as we celebrate the art of storytelling and the triumphant stories of women in the insurance industry. Tamra.
Thank you so much, Sharita. It is so nice to be here. And before I start, I just want to say a special thank you to Sharita, Jephthah, and Omari for the invitation to lead today's discussion. You know, it is closing out Women's History Month, and what no better way for us to actually close this out than to have a discussion with our sisters in the industry. And I want to encourage y'all. I see the comments in the chat. I see everybody shouting out. So as Sharita mentioned, I am Vice President of Public Affairs with the American Property Casualty Insurance Association, but I am also on the board of NAAIA Chicago. And so I see some of my NAAIA Chicago people are on the line. It is great to see all of you and welcome everyone else from around the country. We hope to have a very strong discussion today. We want to make sure that I'm bringing in my speakers as well, but I also want to thank all of you for joining us. You know, NAAIA celebrates women in the industry throughout the year, but this is a great time for us to have this very detailed discussion around women in insurance, particularly Black women in insurance. So now I'd like to bring in our panelists for today, Valencia and Jennifer. Please join us. We are looking forward to speaking with both of you. I want to give you both an opportunity to introduce yourselves. And also, as you do that, also share with some information around what's some good advice that you have received as a woman in the industry.
All right, I'll take that one first. Thank you so much, Tamra and NAAIA, for having me. My name is Valencia Jones. I am the Sales Associate Vice President at Nationwide Insurance. My team and I manage the western part of the United States. So everything from Texas north, west of the Dakotas is under my team's responsibility. I've been with Nationwide now for about 25 or 28 years. And prior to that, I spent some time at Farmers. So most of my career now has been in sales, but first 16 years I actually spent in claims, which I think if you're going into the industry, claims is where you need to start because that's where the insurance rubber hits the road. So I encourage anyone to do a stint in claims at some point in time in their career. As far as questions or advice that I've received from a woman and about being a woman is around, just understanding your crystal balls and your rubber balls. So the quote was, "Don't worry about the towels." And the context of that quote was a woman leader who was really starting to advance in her career and needed her family to step in more. And she was getting frustrated because her family didn't fold the towels and put them in the linen closet the way she did. And she needed to let that go, right? And just recognize that getting the help, getting the assistance sometimes is enough. And so I've really taken that to heart as I've advanced and moved on in my career. I ask for help, one, but then when that help comes, not criticize it, right? Not criticize the way the dishwasher gets loaded or, what time maybe we're having dinner, whatever those things may be. Take the help because you need it as you're moving forward and allow that help to come in the form that it's given.
Valencia, I love that. And I think you just might have saved my marriage. So thank you. As someone who loves control, I can really take that advice to heart. So hi, everyone. My name is Jen Nicholson, and I am thrilled to be here to have this conversation with you all today. Before I begin, I just want to say thank you to Omari, to Tamra, to all who are involved behind the scenes, Sharita, so many. I don't want to miss any names, but I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to share this space, to share my experiences and provide any additional support that I can. In answer to your question, Tamra, my background is a little bit more unconventional because I came into the insurance industry as an attorney. So right now I'm sitting as a leader, a vice president in talent acquisition, and my team are just talent acquisition professionals ranging from recruiters to sourcers, executive recruiters. Our team supports the commercial lines of business at Liberty Mutual, and we're responsible for bringing in top talent into the organization. So we're really responsible for the outcomes of the organization, making sure that we're bringing in top talent who's going to help the organization succeed and bringing in top talent that's going to have the right cultural fit. And I know that sometimes is a trigger word in the recruiting space, but we want to make sure that we're promoting a culture of inclusion here at Liberty Mutual. So that's something that's really top of mind for me and for my team. I will say that in terms of advice that I've been given, I don't think anyone has actually sat me down and given me advice. What I've tried to do throughout my career is really look at leaders that I like how they lead, and I like what they're doing, and I want to emulate them. And so what I've seen is that the leaders that I admire, and there's a couple that are just running through my mind right now, they are authentically themselves. They are authentically Black women, and they are authentically and well respected. When they walk into rooms, you can tell that there's just a level of respect that people have for them when they're sitting in their seat. And they're not always the loudest in the room. Actually, most oftentimes they're not the loudest in the room. But when they speak, they have everyone's attention. It's like everybody gravitates when they open up their mouth. And so they command this level of respect. And it's also based on their knowledge, their experience, and demonstrated proven track record of excellence that they've shown up with. And so that for me has been something that I want to emulate in my career as well.
That's phenomenal and great tidbits and feedback. And thank you both for that. Now, I want to talk briefly about how you both came to be in the industry. Was it on the high school vision board when you first started out in your career, or did you happen to slip into the industry, as I know a lot of us do? And I'll start with you, Jennifer, on this one.
Yeah, definitely not on the high school vision board. In fact, if anyone had talked to me about insurance, I probably would have gotten or gravitated to the stereotype of insurance is boring, right? I have come to realize that it is far from boring. I actually started out as an attorney, practiced as an attorney for about 15 years, and in that practice, I started out as a law clerk in the civil division back in New Jersey and got a lot of exposure to lawsuits, right? Seeing attorneys come in and motor vehicle accidents or slip and falls, and recognizing that insurance defense litigation was really going to be an opportunity for me to hone my litigation skills. And so that was something that I was really looking forward to. I didn't want to go to a big firm where I'd be writing briefs all day for lawyers, for partners to go and do the courtroom work. I wanted to be able to do that. And so that area of practice really helped me become a litigator. And then I realized, oh, you know what? Maybe I don't want to be a partner in a law firm. So maybe I want to transition to in-house. And so once I transitioned in-house to Liberty Mutual, I was exposed to all these different areas of insurance that I had no idea existed. Once I came in-house and specifically started serving on an ERG, an employee resource group, which is our version of an affinity group, I just had relationships that were just bridged across the insurance industry and got insight into, okay, the breadth and the scope of what insurance is and the many careers that we can have in insurance. And so I'm really enjoying being able to reinvent myself and reinvent my career in insurance, and looking forward to what's next, quite frankly.
Love that, the opportunity to reinvent your career multiple times in insurance. Valencia, how about you?
Well, unlike Jennifer, who had a plan after college, I did not. So I was just kind of finding my way as a young college graduate, and literally got into the industry by accident. I had a claim rep rear-end me on the highway. And as I was going through my claims process, I started asking questions about what this job was, what was it called, and this was back in the day when we still had newspapers. I started looking in the newspaper for that position, and just speaking to, how Black people sometimes help one another. It was a brother that pulled my resume out of the garbage and referred me to another office to get a position, because I walked into a claims office, brought my resume. He saw me, he saw them toss that resume, he pulled it out, called me one evening and said, hey, I know this office is posting, has a position open, and just kind of looking at your background, you might be a good fit. And the rest is history.
Perfect. And I know, Jennifer, you talked previously about strong women that you've looked to in the industry. Do you guys have anyone specifically that you could point to that have really helped guide your career, not just in insurance, but maybe just throughout your course into leadership? Anyone that helped guide or motivate you?
Yeah, I have a couple Black women. One was when I was an attorney at a law firm, and she was a partner. And when I tell you, she just exuded excellence and required excellence from me. I still to this day have this one brief that I wrote. It had to be about 10 pages, and she marked X's all the way through it, except this one paragraph that she circled in red, and she wrote yes, exclamation point. Can I tell you, I saved that brief. I said, I got one paragraph right. Right? But it was like a motivating factor for me to come up to a standard of excellence. And she really taught me how to do that in this. So I paid attention to details. I started to pay attention to the details of my work. And that, I think, was transformative to me. And then transitioning into becoming an in-house attorney, and then watching another she was an SVP at the time. Now she's an EVP. And she was just someone who, when you walk into a room, you listen to what it is that she has to say, just exuding wisdom, but also kindness. And I don't know if we talk about that a lot. She is someone who pays attention to the whole person and really extended a hand to me and said, hey, you're moving up to Boston from New Jersey. You don't have any friends. You don't have any family here. Let me get you connected with a network so that you can have some connectivity to this organization and to this community. And for me, that was incredibly transformative and powerful to demonstrate to me how empathy as a leader can really go a long way to inspire someone else to do great work.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the kindness component. Valencia?
What a beautiful story, Jennifer. You know, I, for a long time, didn't see myself in leadership roles in insurance for a very long time. At the point that I did, we had an EVP of HR who had taken over. And when I tell you the way this woman led was such grace, but also transparency, she pushed hard and advocated hard. And whenever I interacted with her, I always got just small little pearls of wisdom that I took with me. And again, that kindness that you talked about, that example that Jen mentioned before, just always, you know, carried herself in a way that was dignified, that commanded respect, but was still approachable. And so I really look to her. Her name is Gail King. She actually, after she retired, she wrote a book, which was lovely. She's had numerous honors throughout her career. Just for much of the transformation, I believe that she is responsible for here at Nationwide and beyond, including integrating corporate boards of directors and things like that. So proud to have known her and to have had an opportunity to get knowledge that she shared.
Yeah, and I love what you both shared in terms of just the approachability, the vulnerability, the authenticity. And it's very interesting what you remember about folks. Now, oftentimes it's not the day-to-day work. It's really how they interacted with you. I can call out a woman in my career. Her name's Lynette Long. She is a sorority sister of mine. She also worked at an organization when I made the decision to come out of local news and go into public relations. And I just remember it was so nice having her at an organization because that was that person you could go to when you had a bad day, when you just needed to debrief. And I think it's always helpful to have that venting network that you can actually turn to in that support system. And so I want to kind of go into more detail around that. Sharita gave some data stats around the number of Black women in insurance. There's not many of us in leadership roles. And so I wanted to ask both of you if you had those connections, because oftentimes it's not always easy to find. And I want to talk a little bit about how we can improve that as women in the industry. In your own personal journey, what have you done to actually reach out, and how would you recommend that other women try to do that to increase the number of us within the industry? And
Okay.
Jennifer, we can go ahead and start with you.
Yeah, because I'm off mute. So next time I'll mute myself. But to increase the number of Black women, I think it is about reciprocating what? For me, it's about reciprocating what I've received, right? And so I had leaders who recognized talent, who encouraged me in my career. And so that's what I try to give back to others that I see who are coming up behind me. And the reality is that I do have conversations with women in the organization who don't necessarily feel like they're thriving, don't feel like they have support in their respective areas that they're sitting in their career. And so it's really important for us to provide that outlet, that encouragement, so people understand that they can continue to move forward, that there is a pathway to success. I think that networking is huge for that, to provide that space. At Liberty, we have a girls group chat for Black women, where we do get together monthly and share and have conversations around what our wins, what our challenges, what our opportunities. And I think that that is helpful. Externally, Verna Alexander, who is our Chief Claims Officer and an EVP here at Liberty. She leads the Jack and Jill organization. And so recently I was able to participate in a panel conversation with them and encouraging the next generation to consider insurance as an opportunity for them to have a wide-ranging career growth and opportunities. So all about giving back.
Yeah. And Valencia, did you have anything there?
Not much. I will say that I'm happy that I work for an organization that really walks its talk. So we're very aligned with the National MBA Association, where we're always looking to recruit executives in that space. But for me personally, I will always keep my door open. I will reach out if I see a young woman that I don't know. I will always go over and introduce myself, make myself available however I can to just give them that leadership connection. Because again, sometimes it's a while before we actually see ourselves in roles. And so it's important for me to take that proactive approach when I can, when the opportunity presents itself. But fortunately, I have a company that does a lot of that work as well. So
yeah, that's phenomenal. And I definitely encourage those who have companies and have resources to make sure they connect there. I want to shift a little bit into talking about how we as women show up and take care of ourselves, how we take care of our sisters in the industry. I know we all saw the news a few months back, Dr. Antoinette Candia Bailey at Lincoln University, her tragic death and what occurred there in terms of her caring for her own personal mental health and resources that maybe weren't available to her. Curious for both of you, how have you worked to protect your peace of mind, your mental health, and often a very hectic and busy industry? We know we deal with a lot of different issues on a daily basis. So how do you approach caring for your wellness and mental health?
I'm off mute again, huh? Okay. I don't deploy one tactic. It's all of the things, right? And it can be different things at different times, depending on what's needed. I will say that as a woman of a Christian faith and background, I lean heavily into my faith. I lean heavily into prayer. I lean heavily into my time with the Lord, right? Like it's just non-negotiable. And so I don't take calls on Sundays, especially like during that time, right? Like I'm trying to very much protect my personal time. And so Sundays for sure, after work, absolutely, right? Unless there's a work event that pops up here and there that I might voluntarily participate in, that's something else. But I do try like to shut down at a certain time at night. In addition to that, though, I'm a heavy believer in traveling. I'm a first generation American. My parents are Jamaican. So I am very much heavily crisscrossing into the Caribbean, overseas, wherever I can go to get sunshine. Because being in Boston, I don't always get sunshine, right? So get sunshine and warmth. Those things feed my soul, right? And speaking of feeding your soul, like surrounding yourself with community that does that for you as well is incredibly important. And then recently, like when I say recently, I want to say like about a good 4 weeks ago now, I'm looking at the calendar, I started back at Orange Theory. And that has been just incredibly stress relieving for me, right? And I'm a fairly newlywed, and so I got kind of comfortable, right? And I can't blame my husband. I got to take care of me. We have to take care of ourselves. And as much as I want to like be booed up on the couch, that's not helpful for me, right? And so I found that exercising, leaning into my faith, leaning into prayer, and traveling are like my best things. Oh, sorry. One last thing that I just did last week. It was my birthday last week, and I played hooky from work. And I went to a spa, and when I tell you, it was delightful. It was glorious. It was all the things. I'm like, why do I not do this more often? So I would encourage people every once in a while, take a work day off, right? It doesn't have to be a Friday. It doesn't have to be, take a work day off and treat yourself. Be kind to yourself.
Yes. I see some amens in the chat, Selena, on your face. So I see a lot of people are there with you. And I also am a part of the spa ministry. I must say that is the Lord's will for my life as well. So I agree with you there. And I got my Bowflex weights in the house. So it helps to have things that are easily accessible so you can easily get in a workout. I agree with that as well. Lindsay, what do you do to maintain your mental health and wellness?
Orange Theory, 610, 3 times a week for starters, but definitely prayer. And I'm fortunate. I have a husband of 35 years that I can lean on, and he gives such great counsel. Sometimes he doesn't say what I want to hear, but having that partner, regardless, is always good to have an outside in perspective, because at this point, he knows as about as much as insurance as I do, just through Pillow Talk. But then the internal community as well. A group of women went to the Women of Power, and we still stay in touch and connect. And so whenever I go out to Columbus, we try to get together and maybe at least have a meal or something together. We have a little text chat that keeps us going. And we're always praising and uplifting one another as we see promotions happening or what have you, or just checking in on folks if maybe someone's been quiet in the chat. So I think it's important to just make sure that we have that group that you check in on. You need folks that aren't in the industry as well to give you maybe a different perspective or hear experiences differently. And then it's all about your physical and mental health. And I am a huge proponent of exercise and eating right. Lately, my husband and I have been focused on what we're putting in our bodies as well. What we're not willing to get rid of is the wine. We live in California. It's like water here. It runs out of the faucets. Outside of that, though, we're looking at what we put in our bodies.
I love that. And I'm seeing in the chat a lot of people amening the community. And I'm going to go ahead and do a shameless plug. I think becoming a part of NAAIA is such a great way to create community for yourself in the industry. And so if you have a local chapter in your area, encourage you to tap in there. And if not, still look into national. There's so many great opportunities like these webinars. They have a lot of in-person events for you as well. So definitely consider NAAIA as a resource for you there. Now I want to kind of roll into the theme of our discussion for today. We're talking about storytelling in the industry and how we can use our stories to really promote more diverse voices and also actually support those around us. My background is journalism. I strongly believe in the power of storytelling. You know, it's my personal belief. We're born, we walk through this world in our own shoes, and it's only through the sharing of our personal experiences that we give another an opportunity to understand our experience, to open up their world to what somebody else may be going through. So I want to talk with you. How have you all shared your stories to help encourage women around you? And what advice would you give for women who may not be as open to sharing their experience?
I'll go ahead and take this one. So I would say as Black women, we're already used to hard things. So oftentimes in our industry, we're delivering tough messages, right? Whether right now it's risk management tactics that need to happen. We're all focused on improving our profitability, et cetera. But because we're already used to having difficult conversations, it gives us credibility when we go out. Now, that information, whatever we're doing, has to be backed by data, but you already come with a level, again, of credibility because this isn't the first difficult conversation you had. So you can look someone in the eye, you can back up what you're saying, and bring them along on the journey with you, which is so critically important, especially those of us as leaders. We first have to get our team aligned and following us so that they can go out and disseminate widely.
And Jennifer?
Tamra, can you just, if you wouldn't mind, just re-asking the question, because I just want to make sure I'm fully answering what it is that you're asking.
Absolutely. So how have you shared your story to help other women in the industry? How would you encourage women who may not be as open to share?
Yeah. I do think telling the truth, speaking truth to power is what I like to call it. Because there are opportunities when we are seated in places that others are not, and we have an opportunity to speak the truth about what's happening. And it's important, one, from a representation perspective, but two, because the other people who are sitting in the room honestly do not know. Like, they honestly, there are times when they don't have that lens, they don't have that perspective, they don't have the connection to the community. And so I have always tried to speak the truth, but in love, right? And so it's not in a way that's supposed trying to be combative or trying to make someone feel bad or trying to shame someone, but really, how do we take the information that we have about the truth of the story, of the truth of what's happening to people, and create something that's going to alleviate whatever the pain point is, right? And so I definitely think that it's really, first of all, our stories are powerful. And we shouldn't shy away from them. And I did hear this once, I think it was from a development program that I was in, but they really helped me to think about it this way, that when we get in spaces where we have an opportunity to speak the truth to power, or we have an opportunity to share our stories, and we don't do that, we have actually taken up space that someone else could have had, right? We have taken the seat away from someone else who would have done that. And so and the person who's inviting us to the table, the person who's inviting us into those spaces, they want to know. They are inviting you because they are expecting you to show up. They're expecting you to provide them with the information that they need. And so when we don't share our stories, when we don't speak truth to power, we really are doing a disservice, not only to the person who invited us, but to all of those who we are representing in that space. And so I encourage, as you can probably tell, anyone, right, who has that opportunity to really speak the truth, but do it in a way that will foster progress, right? And instead of like tearing people down.
100%. There is a way to deliver the message, but speaking truth to power, I couldn't agree with that more. And we talked about the importance of data in the storytelling, and I want to shiftly bring in the NAAIA study that they did with Dr. Lee Nunnery and Marsh called The Journey in Insurance. They also updated that report recently, and it was the next steps in the journey. And one of the data points that came from those findings was that a higher percentage of survey participants marked racial and gender bias as top barriers to entry to the industry over those that were surveyed 5 years ago. And as women, as Black women in the industry, we are a double minority. What do you make of findings where we see that gender bias, racial bias are actually preventing people from entering the industry? And how can storytelling help correct that problem? I'll start with you, Valencia.
Yeah, so I think first let's just talk about the racial and gender bias. I think that is undeniable as we look up and you look at C-suites of any carrier right now in the industry, and definitely when you look across the independent insurance agents across America, we don't see very many of us. I believe that one part of that has to do with lack of mentorship and lack of identifying allies and or sponsors to kind of help us up through the industry. And the fact is right now that we probably won't have leaders that look like us that can help us move through the paces of our industry. So identifying someone who recognizes your talent for your talent is going to be critically important. And then asking for the help that you need to move forward, expressing what it is that you want to do in the industry is also important. Whenever I'm talking to leaders or peers, I'm letting them know what I'm thinking about in terms of my next move, what I'm working on developmentally, if you will, not necessarily what my next move is, but here are the things I'm working on developmentally. Hold me accountable to that. I think that's the beginning. But then, of course, there's the data component. As we continue to move the industry forward and look at um, different data. I lost my train of thought just that quickly. So I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer.
No, I think that's a phenomenal point, Valencia, and especially, making sure that you realize that the person that might help you may not look like you, and that's okay. I can call out, I have Marguerite Tortorello's in the industry, Jessica Hanna, who is my direct leadership here at APCIA, people who have really gone out for me, sponsored me when they didn't have to. So I think really looking at the resources around you and making sure that you're making those connections, not just within your organization, but also those within the industry that can offer that guidance to you. And Jennifer, did you have anything there?
Yeah, I mean, the numbers are discouraging, and disappointing, and yet, I also recognize that people have to do what's best for them, right? And so, whether for mental health reasons or different priorities at different stages of life, right? People may want to start their own business and not continue in an organization. There's many reasons why people might leave, that aren't necessarily because of lack of opportunities. However, we do know that there are lack of opportunities. And so I love Valencia's point about expanding our networks beyond racial lines, gender lines, right? Making sure that we have a diverse group of people that we are networking with, leaning on, and tapping into to further our career advancement and to just gain knowledge from as well. And then how do we partner? How do we serve, right? So that was one of the things that I really enjoyed about serving in an ERG, and really having strategic conversations with other partners across the organization about how do we affect this trend that we're seeing. We see the data is informing us. Now, what are we doing with the data? How are we leveraging that data to make strategic changes for our organization, and recognizing that diversity benefits everyone, right? And so it benefits the bottom line of the organization. It benefits the thought collaboration of the organization. It helps everyone be more successful. So how do we get to that, right? And so having those conversations, I think, are really necessary. And all of us can have that at some level within our organization. You don't have to wait to be an EVP, an SVP, a VP, whatever. You don't have to wait till you're in that seat to start having those conversations about how we can scale change that is effective for the masses across the industry.
Yeah, Jennifer, I don't want to follow up with you on that. I know you're oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Valencia.
I was going to ask, if I could just tack onto that. I think that it's important to just call out that it's only been the last 5 years or so where we've really openly discussed race at work. And I think that as we now have permission to do so, we need to say something when we see something. And I'll give an example. We just recently went through some restructuring. And as we were going through this, I noticed some concerns. And as soon as I identified them, first I kind of checked in with another leader that looked like me, but then I quickly pivoted to HR and I said, hold on a second. Are we looking at this? Are we making sure that the decisions that are being made are based upon what we say, right? Based upon skills and knowledge and abilities? Or is there something else maybe underlying going on? And as we move through this, we did see a little bit of a shift, but it was so important that at the very moment that it's identified, that we speak up and we say something, because now we have permission. We didn't have permission in 2018 like we do today.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, Valencia. My organization, we've had a DEI leader for over 10 years. So we have had space. But what was interesting to me stepping into this organization and getting closer to the insurance industry, not from like a legal background, is that in the legal world, they've always had these affinity bars, right? Like, so I was always engrossed in a culture that had conversations about race, especially because, you know, we had civil rights lawyers, we had like all this, just this work around diversity in the legal profession. And so stepping into an industry where when I came in, I said, wait, you guys have only had a DEI leader for a year, but this organization is almost 100 years old. Like, where's this disconnect happening, right? Where we're not having these conversations. But to your point, now that we can have these conversations, this is where, when we're invited to the rooms, that we do have to tell the truth in our stories and help people be aware. Because when I say, like, genuinely, there are times when genuinely people are just living in their own bubble and do not know, are not aware. And so these stories are helpful to humanize, right? Whatever they might be seeing on social media or whatever they might be hearing from television or from wherever their sources are.
I think that's a phenomenal point, to humanize the industry, humanize us as representatives of Black women in the industry. Jennifer, I wanted to talk to you because as your team goes out to recruit, you know, how are you shaping that external message to make sure that the storytelling is incorporated, and how are you seeing the benefits from that come in?
Yeah, so there's my team and then there's our partners, right? So my team also partners with our Office of DEI and partners with some of our other talent professionals. And we've piloted some things, and some of it is like an inclusive interview. And we are seeing where, let me take a step back. The inclusive interview really is to understand from a leadership perspective how the person has demonstrated inclusive behaviors, right, throughout their career, which is important to Liberty, right? Because again, we strive to be an inclusive organization. And so things like that, that's what I'm talking about scaling, right? Like when we're partnering and we're bringing up these conversations and saying, okay, we want to make sure that this is an inclusive environment, that people feel like they can thrive, that they can bring their whole selves to work, and that they have an opportunity to succeed and can grow their careers. How do we do that for everyone across the board? So my team, very much as they're having their conversations with people, they're asking them about their inclusive behaviors and backgrounds, and how they bring that to life over the history of their careers. The other thing is that, again, we are partnering with the business, right, to make sure that that is a top priority for our leaders, and that our leaders are messaging down the importance of having an inclusive culture and behavior. So it really takes, it's not just my team, it's all the things, right? All of us collectively together, stacking hands, making sure that this is a priority for the organization, because what we don't want to do is bring in people who have a different mindset or priority that is going to tear down people and prevent others from rising when there should be opportunity.
Very good point. Valencia, on your end, nationwide, have you all done anything specific to really get the storytelling outside the organization to those who may be interested in joining?
Yeah, absolutely. So just as Liberty does, we've had an active DE&I group for quite some time, and also have different ARGs that support our associates. But as I mentioned earlier, we are big supporters of the African American MBA Association, and we also partner with HBCUs now. And then, you know, our sponsorship dollars go to, and please forgive me, I'm not a big sports person, but the conference, is it CIAA, I think, that has, you know, that supports the athletic department of African American, again, just promoting nationwide as a supporter, but also as a opportunity for employment.
Absolutely. And I want to encourage folks to drop your questions in the Q&A. We are going to get to those briefly. But I also, to close out just our general discussion, how can we as an industry, oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt you, Tamra, but Valencia is like dropping some really great nuggets here, and she's promoting her organization. I just want to let you know we do HBCUs too. When we recruit from HBCUs too, we practice equitable hiring practices across the board. So I just want to say Liberty is great. If y'all are thinking about where you want to go next, Liberty is wonderful. Come on over, talk to me. Thank you.
We go recruit on this, and I'm not mad about that at all. But yes, please drop your questions into the Q&A. Just quickly, I wanted to get some feedback from both of you in terms of how we can support the development of women leaders within the industry who are interested in moving into leadership roles. Valencia?
I think it's important for us as existing leaders to reach out, but also, again, make ourselves available to those that reach out, just to help broaden the network and help them, better navigate within a company or within the industry. I believe that organizations like NAAIA is another great path, I think, for folks to maybe look at different ways that they can go with their career in insurance, because it doesn't all have to start and stop at the carrier perspective. And I saw a chat bubble pop up that said we need more DE&I in the independent agency space. Yep, we do. I think the exclusive carriers have it, I won't say have it down, but they're really good about bringing on diverse agents. I don't think we're doing as good of a job in the independent agency space. And I think carriers have moved a little bit further along for the industry. So I'm proud of what we've done as an industry. Again, we have a lot of work to do, but I do believe that we're making paths forward, and having people like Jennifer sitting in talent acquisition is where these changes will happen. But again, if you don't say something when you see something, change isn't going to work. I referenced Gail King earlier. She was so pivotal in how we recruited and how we looked at candidates for any role, whether it was an executive role or an individual contributor role. And so those practices are still in play today at Nationwide. And I do believe that it has helped us expand our diversity in terms of leadership moving forward. So for a young woman that wants to move her career forward, reach out. But if you're already in any type of leadership role, make sure that you do the same if you identify someone that has talent.
Absolutely. The industry is hiring. Make sure you reach out. And just quickly, we talked about Gail King. We have a question in the Q&A. Lindsay, can you provide the name of her book one more time?
You're
muted.
There we go. It's called Impact Bound, so by Gail King, and I believe you can get it on Amazon. So
perfect. And Jennifer, did you have any thoughts on how we can develop women in the industry?
Yeah, I think earlier we talked about speaking truth to power. And so there's just two other things I would tack onto that. Speaking truth to each other and being open to feedback. I can't tell you how many times I have run into other women of color who are frustrated and they're, wanting to advance in their career, but they're not open to feedback. And feedback is such a gift. We need to understand how we are showing up in rooms. And if you trust someone to provide you with that feedback, then it's up to you to decide what it is you're going to do with that feedback. But if you want to ignore all the different signs that other people are trying to give you, that however you're showing up is not working, that you're hindering your own career, then it's not going to be helpful for you to advance and to move forward. And I have to say that I've seen that multiple times. Karen Morton is our Chief Compliance Officer, and she's the woman that I was referencing earlier about just someone that I wanted to emulate. And I literally had to sit her down and say, hey, can you show me, teach me how, like your little mannerisms, like why is it that you do this at this point or you do that at this point? How can I, because I know sometimes I can be a little some would say aggressive, I say assertive, right? And that could just be a litigation type background, right? But how can I at times be a little bit more quiet, right? And allow others step back is what we say here at Liberty, and allow others to step up. So I'm listening more, I'm hearing more, I'm learning more, right? And then when I'm speaking from a place of information and less of opinion. And so those little things I think help to demonstrate leadership rather than someone who's trying to assert themselves into leadership. Is that helpful?
I think that's a great point. And,
Right.
we
And I
often talk about
that-
finding those people you trust, that personal board of advisors that can give you that
Yes.
feedback, and you can trust their feedback is in your best interest.
Yeah.
I have to call out though, Jennifer, you read as so confident, but what you just told us is how, how much humility you have, because it takes, you have to set your ego aside to go to someone and say, tell me why you do these little things, right? Help me look more like you. That's all about being, just humble. So I really respect that in you, because all I see is confidence and intelligence. And so hearing that component is meaningful to me.
Yeah, and Valencia, same with you, and same with Tamra, and so many others that we can name. And yet we recognize that people didn't just arrive, right? It took time, it took strategy to get there. And so giving us a little bit of grace as we're on our journey to get there. Yeah.
Phenomenal point. And to that point, earlier we had talked about reinventing your career. We have a question in the chat that says, what advice would you give someone that wants to expand their career, but seems to have been somewhat typecast in a service role in spite of experience, education, and designations?
Yeah, can I jump in here? As someone who has literally changed careers, we call it transferable skills. And so how do you market and demonstrate the transferability of your knowledge, what it is that you've learned, and how it translates to this other career? Because they do. There's a lot of just leadership capabilities that can cross over into other spaces, but it's how you articulate it and how you demonstrate the connectivity for the person that you're interviewing with, for the leader that you're trying to say, hey, think of me for your next role. How do you demonstrate that level of connectivity? And sometimes it takes practicing articulating it, writing it down. What are the connections that you see in this role? Practicing that against somebody else. Because someone in the role that I'm in now, they mock interviewed me. They helped me. They said, okay, that's a little bit too much of legalese here. This is how we say it in HR. Seriously, there's a language, right? And we need to know how to communicate in a way that resonates to the hearer. And so practicing it with someone. And if that means finding someone in recruiting that's a recruiter who you can partner with and say, hey, help me, right? Like as you're thinking through your next roles and you're thinking of talent, I want you to think of me, like, hey, pick me over here, right? Yeah. And so work with me, let's work together to see how I can move careers. And last thing I'll say, it doesn't happen overnight. My journey literally was a year of having conversations across my organization to understand exactly what people do, where my skills fit, and where I can continue to grow.
Phenomenal point.
I really don't have anything to add other than find a sponsor. If you're looking to move outside of your current, I'll just call it your vertical, find a sponsor that can speak for you in the spaces that you want to occupy.
Great point. So let's close on this because I think this is such a phenomenal question. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but this idea of balance as women, not just in the industry, but just professional women. I think that's often a conversation that comes up. Specifically, we had the question around how do you balance working with your spouse and carrying the workload with your companies? I have more issues with balancing work and family life now than ever.
I think it comes in waves. There have been times when I have been very, very focused on my career and maybe allowed more of the family to fall upon my husband. And then there are times when I've been able to step up a little bit more and, allow him to move forward in his career. So I think it's really about making sure that if you're in a partnered relationship, that you are having those conversations frequently, that you continue to express what you need, and ask for what you need. So I would say start there, but as we both talked about earlier with our exercise, et cetera, you got to take care of yourself. You've got to be, not only in order to be mentally healthy, you have to be physically healthy. The mind's not going to work in a sick body. So you've got to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, top to bottom.
That's so good, Valencia. I don't think that I have much more to add. Actually, I just think that was great, phenomenal.
Perfect. Well, we are at time. I want to thank all of you for joining us. Jennifer, Valencia, honored to have sat on this panel with both of you. And I hope that everyone got some great feedback. Feel free to reach out to us on LinkedIn. We'd love to connect with you with additional questions, anything that we can do to support you throughout your career. We'd love to be a resource.
Thank you for watching this flashback episode with NAAIA. We appreciate your time and hope you found the insights valuable. Stay tuned for more enriching content. Until next time, thank you for being a part of the NAAIA community.